3 months ago, I was living in a $4.2 million home in California with my wife and children. Today, I'm holding a letter that says my entire life has been a fabrication and that the woman who destroyed me may have unknowingly saved me. My name is Fletcher Morrison. I'm 47. Until recently, I was a commercial insurance adjuster in Pasadena, the guy who measured other people's losses and helped them rebuild. I thought I had the American dream. I've been married to Cordelia, my high school sweetheart, for 18 years. We had two kids, Quinlan and Brenna, 16 and 14, both brilliant and the center of my world. From our hillside house, we could see the whole city glittering below. I believed I knew exactly who I was, Fletcher Morrison, son of Whifford Morrison, a quiet librarian who raised me alone after my father supposedly died in a car crash when I was 12. We didn't have much growing up in Ohio, but Mom made sure I never went without. She was organized, attentive, and carried life's weight with quiet grace. Cordelia and I had fallen in love as teenagers. Her ambition and beauty matched my steady resolve. She built a successful career in real estate while we raised our kids and chased opportunities west. Quinlan grew into a star athlete, already on college scouts' radars. Brenna inherited my mother's artistic spirit, able to capture the world in ways that stopped you in your tracks. For decades, that was my story. No reason to question it. Until cracks appeared. About 18 months ago, Cordelia started taking phone calls in private, coming home later and later. She began treating me like a stranger. The warmth we'd shared was gone. The kids noticed. Quinlan asked why she seemed angry all the time. Brenna's drawings grew darker, fractured families with hollow smiles. I told myself it was stress, a phase, something we'd push through. I tried to reconnect, but the more effort I made, the more distant she became. Then the divorce papers came, and with them, accusations I couldn't even fathom. According to her lawyers, I was a gambling addict, drowning in hidden debts, unfit to parent. They had proof, bank statements, casino slips with my forged signature, even people swearing I owed them money. None of it was true. But the evidence was airtight. Court was a nightmare. Lawyers dismantled my life while Cordelia stared past me like I was nothing. The judge handed her everything. Our house, custody of the kids, my assets. And outside the courthouse, Cordelia leaned close and whispered with a cold smile, "You'll never see them again. I'm moving to Portland next month. And you don't have the money to stop me." That was when I realized this wasn't just a failed marriage. It was something calculated, ruthless, and far beyond me. Within 6 weeks, I had lost everything. My home, my career, my license. With nowhere else to go, I packed what was left of my life into my Civic and drove 1,200 miles back to Ohio, to my late mother's house that had been sitting empty since her death. The drive felt like rewinding my entire life. When I pulled into that old Maple Street driveway in Akron, I felt like a ghost haunting his own past. The house was small and unassuming, just as it had been the day of Mom's funeral. White siding, black shutters, the porch where she'd once sat each evening with tea and a library book. I sat in the car for a long time, staring, realizing how far I'd fallen. 3 months earlier, my bedroom window overlooked Los Angeles. Now I was looking at Mrs. Patterson's garden gnomes across the street. Mom had bought the house when I was 12 after Dad died, on nothing more than hope and a librarian's paycheck. She raised me there alone, never remarried, never complained, just built a life of quiet stability. She always found a way to provide school clothes, college tuition, even small luxuries. When I once asked how she managed it all on so little, she only smiled and said, "You find a way when someone depends on you." That's what parents do. Walking inside, I was surrounded by her presence. Lavender soap, old books, furniture untouched since her last day. Her reading glasses still sat on the end table, her mystery novel left open mid-chapter. In those rooms, the weight of everything I'd lost nearly crushed me. My kids were far away, likely hearing lies about me. My wife had turned into someone I couldn't recognize. My career, reputation, and savings were gone. But I still had this house. The one thing Cordelia's lawyers couldn't touch. I decided I would renovate it, sell it, and use every dollar to fight for my children. It seemed like a plan. What I didn't know was that my mother had left me something far more valuable than the property itself. The divorce process had officially begun 8 months after Cordelia first asked for space. I should have seen it, but I clung to the idea we could work things out. I'll never forget the morning the papers arrived, 7:30 a.m., a process server at the door while I was getting ready for work. Inside was not just a petition for divorce, but for everything I owned: custody, house, business, retirement funds. And then the allegations. Allegations that would unravel everything I thought I knew about myself. The document said I was a compulsive gambler, hiding mountains of debt from my family. They accused me of stealing client escrow funds to feed the addiction, painting me as reckless, unstable, even dangerous around our kids. None of it was true. I maybe ever bought 5 lottery tickets, never set foot in a casino, never played poker. My practice was built on trust, every client account reconciled, every cent accounted for. Yet Cordelia's lawyers somehow produced paperwork that looked irrefutable. When I confronted Cordelia that night, she was methodical, folding clothes and packing boxes like she'd practiced the motion 1,000 times. I waved the papers, my hands trembling. This says I'm a gambler. It says I stole money. You know, none of this is true. She glanced up without surprise. The bank statements don't lie, she said. I know what I know, Fletcher. When she finally looked me in the eye, there was a cold, calculated hardness there. No anger, no grief, just a stranger's resolve. You're not the man I married, she told me. Maybe you never were. The next 6 weeks blurred into legal meetings, document reviews, and humiliation. Patricia Voss, Cordelia's razor-sharp attorney, laid out evidence that shouldn't have existed: bank withdrawals I'd never made, casino slips signed with my name from places I'd never visited, online gambling charges on cards I didn't recognize. My own lawyer, Robert Chin, someone I trusted for business work, kept asking the same impossible question: is any of this real? I swore on my children's lives that I'd never gambled beyond a charity raffle. Still, more supposed proof arrived: witness statements claiming I borrowed and never repaid, a coworker swearing he'd see me betting at lunch, even my friend-turned-neighbor Jerry signing an affidavit describing me as desperate and erratic. Watching the kids suffer was the worst. Quinlan pulled away, spending more time at friend houses, answering me in one-word replies. Brenna still hugged me good night, but her drawings turned inward, confused, fractured. A court-appointed psychologist ran a custody evaluation that felt designed to confirm the accusations. Dr. Martinez questioned me for hours about my mental state and habits like she'd already read Cordelia's file. Addiction often involves denial, she said with a clinical distance. I told her the truth. I wasn't an addict. She took notes and said she'd include my answers in the report. On a cold November Tuesday, I went to court hoping truth would break through. The courtroom was small and clinical. Judge Patricia Winters, older, world-weary, listened as Cordelia's side presented a precise, surgical case: ledgers, testimonies, expert opinions on addiction and family harm. They crafted a portrait of a man living a double life, whose alleged addiction had escalated to theft. My lawyer pointed out inconsistencies and suspect timing, argued much of the evidence was circumstantial, but wasn't enough. Judge Winters awarded Cordelia primary custody, the house, and most of our assets. I was limited to supervised visits every other weekend and told to enroll in a gambling treatment program and financial counseling. In the courthouse parking lot, Cordelia found me and smiled as if delivering mercy. You'll never see Quinlan and Brenna again, she said. I'm moving them to Portland next month, and you don't have the money to stop me. After that, I returned to my mother's house like a man stepping into a preserved life. Her things were exactly as she'd left them: mug in the drainer, glasses on the end table, slippers by the bed, little reliquaries of normalcy. For weeks I sat on the couch and hoped it was a nightmare I could wake from. But every morning I saw the same water stain on the ceiling and remembered my old life was gone. Depression hit hard. I'd lie there unable to make coffee, unable to shower, weighed down by the thought of what Cordelia might be telling our kids. Were they scared? Did they believe their father had abandoned them or become someone dangerous? After a month of sinking, something inside me finally snapped, and whatever came next was born of that breaking point. Maybe it was my mother's practical voice echoing in my head, or plain survival instinct, but I realized fast that getting my kids back would require money, and the only asset I had was her house. The place needed work. Cabinets refinished, bathroom updated, fresh paint. If I could make it sellable, I could fund a legal fight. I threw myself into renovating with a kind of desperate focus: sanding, painting, fixing, anything to feel useful after months of helplessness. The basement was the last project. Sorting through decades of my mother's things, holiday boxes, old school projects, photo albums, felt oddly comforting. Then I noticed the area around the old furnace, fresh-looking scratch marks in the concrete and odd dust patterns. The furnace had clearly been shifted recently, which made no sense. Mom had been frail for years. After a brutal afternoon disconnecting a gas line and levering the unit away, I found a hidden, built-in combination safe set into the wall. It blended with the concrete, worn from use, and the dial ran 0 to 99. My heart raced until I remembered Mom's obsessive birthday habit. She always called at 7:23 a.m. on March 15th, the minute I was born. Acting on that memory, I tried March 15th, 77 on the lock. It clicked open. Inside was everything: stacks of cash, $847,000, and a set of startling documents. Multiple driver's licenses bore my mother's face but different names: Isabella Reyes, Maria Santos, Catherine Walsh. There were matching social security cards, birth certificates, even a passport dated 1988. These weren't crude forgeries. They looked official. My quiet librarian had been living under aliases for decades. At the bottom was an envelope addressed to me in Mom's handwriting. The letter shattered everything I'd believed. My real name, she wrote, was Fletcher Castellano. My father wasn't the construction worker who died in a car crash. He was Vincent Castellano, murdered by the Torino crime family on September 18, 1989. My mother had witnessed the killing and fled with me. 3 months later, she testified before a federal grand jury. In January 1990, we entered witness protection, became Wyford and Fletcher Morrison, and started a new life in Akron with new identities and a small settlement. The pieces fell into place. How Mom always seemed to have just enough money, her secrecy about the past, her constant caution. The cash in the safe was the remainder of that settlement, and her savings. Then came the worst news. Mom had hired investigators after hearing whispers that people were asking about the Castellano family again. They found me in California, and horrifyingly, my wife Cordelia had been working with the people searching for us. Whether she understood what she was doing or was manipulated, the divorce, the forged gambling evidence, the financial ruin, it had all been engineered to drive me back to Ohio, to a place where someone suspected my mother might have left traces from the original case. Mom hadn't only left money and the truth, she'd left a way to act. The letter named a contact, Marshal Theodore Vance of the U.S. Marshals, with a number underlined and written in red. "Tell him you're Vincent Castellano's son," she wrote, "and that you're ready to finish what we started." Her final words apologized for hiding the truth to give me a normal life, then urged me to be brave and use the money to get the kids back. I sat on that concrete floor stunned for an hour, then dialed the number. The call was answered on the second ring, like someone had been waiting for that day for 35 years. "You, Vance. Marshal Vance. This is Fletcher Morrison, but I think my real name is Fletcher Castellano." There was a long pause, then a deep breath. "Son, I've been waiting for this call since your mother died. Where are you right now?" "I'm at my mother's house in Akron, sitting next to an open safe she left for me. Don't touch anything else. Don't talk to anyone. And don't leave that house. I'll be there in 4 hours." Marshal Vance turned out to be a tall, gray-haired man in his early 60s who looked like he'd seen every kind of human evil imaginable and had never quite gotten used to it. He arrived with 2 other federal agents and spent 6 hours going through everything my mother had left behind, photographing documents, cataloging evidence, and asking me questions about my life in California. "Your mother was one of the bravest people I ever worked with," he told me as we sat at her kitchen table around midnight. She knew they'd eventually track down her son, so she prepared for this day. The money, the safe combination using your birthday, even hiring those private investigators to watch you in California. She wanted you to find all of this when you needed it most. The full scope of what had happened to me was even worse than I'd imagined. The Torino crime family had been systematically hunting down witnesses for my father's murder trial for decades. But they'd gotten smarter. Instead of just killing people, which brought too much federal attention, they learned to destroy lives more subtly. They compromised the people closest to their targets, then used them to create chaos and financial ruin. "They've been working on your case for at least 5 years, Vance explained. They found Cordelia through her real estate connections. They probably approached her as clients first, legitimate business that slowly turned into something else. The investigators my mother hired had been documenting everything. They had recordings of Cordelia meeting with people connected to the Torino organization. They had evidence of money changing hands, falsified documents, witnesses being paid to lie about me. The gambling addiction story, the fake bank statements, all of it was their work. Vance said they'd used the same playbook on 6 other witnesses in the past 15 years. Create financial and legal chaos, destroy the person's credibility, then wait for them to run back to wherever they came from. But there was something the Torino family hadn't counted on. My mother's death from natural causes 2 years earlier had triggered protocols within the Marshal Service. They'd been quietly monitoring the situation, waiting to see if anyone would come looking for the safe house in Ohio. "We've had surveillance on this neighborhood for 2 years," Vance admitted. "We knew if they forced you to come back here, they'd eventually make their move. We've been documenting everyone who's shown unusual interest in this address." The most shocking revelation came the next morning. Cordelia had been arrested at her Portland hotel at 6 a.m., along with 3 men who'd been following her. She believed she was working with private investigators who were helping her secure a better divorce settlement. She had no idea they were connected to organized crime until federal agents explained it to her. "She's agreed to testify," Vance told me over coffee. "Turns out she's as much a victim in this as you are. They convinced her you were hiding gambling debts and other women. They showed her fake evidence, got her scared and angry, then offered to help her protect the kids and secure her financial future. The hardest phone call I ever made was to Quinlan and Brenna. They were staying with Cordelia's sister in Portland, confused and scared because their mother had been arrested and no one would tell them why. Dad." Quinlan's voice sounded small and young, nothing like the confident teenager I remembered. "Hey, buddy. I know this is really confusing right now, but I need you to know everything's going to be okay. Your mom and I both love you very much, and none of what's happened is anybody's fault. Are you really a gambling addict?" Brenna asked when she got on the phone. "Mom said you stole money, and that's why we had to move." "No, sweetheart. I never gambled, and I never stole anything. Some very bad people lied about me to hurt our family, but the police caught them. We're going to be together again very soon. It took 6 months to untangle everything legally." The evidence my mother's investigators had gathered, combined with Cordelia's testimony and the federal case against the Torino organization, was enough to clear my name completely. The gambling records were exposed as fake. The witnesses who'd lied about me recanted their statements. My insurance license was reinstated with an official apology from the state board. Cordelia and I will never get back what we had. Too much damage was done. Too many lies were told. Too much trust was broken. But we're working together now to help our kids understand what happened and why. She's in therapy, dealing with the guilt of being manipulated into tearing her own family apart. I'm in therapy learning how to trust again. But we got our children back, and that's what matters most. The house in Ohio sold for enough to buy a smaller place in California and fund college accounts for both kids. Quinlan's back on the basketball team, and his coach says several colleges are still interested despite the disruption to his junior year. Brenna's art has gotten more hopeful, more colorful, though she still draws families who look like they've survived storms. I think about my mother every day, about the sacrifice she made to give me a normal childhood, about the courage it took to testify against murderers and then spend 35 years looking over her shoulder. She saved my life twice, once when I was 12 and again when I was 47. I never got the chance to thank her for either one. The Torino case goes to trial next year, and I'll be testifying just like my mother did all those years ago. But this time I won't be running. This time we're going to finish what she started. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads you exactly where you need to be. My mother knew that. Even from beyond the grave, she was still protecting her son. If this story touched you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment below and tell me about a time someone in your family protected you in ways you didn't understand until later. And if you want to hear more stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Thanks for listening. And remember, sometimes the people who love us most are fighting battles we never see, just to keep us safe.